libraries and labs, creating new scientists for a new future. This plan will provide sensible tax relief for the struggling middle class, and unemployment insurance and continued health care coverage for those who've lost their jobs, and it will help prevent our states and local communities. It'll help Governor Ritter and Governor Strickland not have to lay off firefighters and teachers and police, because when they get laid off, not only do we lose services, but maybe they can't make payments on their home, maybe they get foreclosed on and the economy goes down further. And finally, this plan will begin to end the tyranny of oil in our time. Doubles our capacity to generate alternative sources of energy, like wind and solar and biofuels. And it does it in 3 years. Saves taxpayers billions of dollars. Makes federal buildings more efficient. Saves the average working family hundreds of dollars on their energy bills. After decades of empty rhetoric, that's the down payment that we need on energy independence. Now, there's a lot about running for president that is tough, especially, I don't miss sleeping in motels and hotels. I don't miss not being with my kids as much as I'd like. But the best thing about being a candidate, and I hope you know this because those members of Congress who are here, you've run. You know what it's like. You get to see the country. You get to know the character of the American people. Over the last 2 years, I've visited almost all 50 states. I got to admit, the one I missed was Alaska. We're going to get there. I've been in so many of your districts. I passed through towns and cities and farms and factories, and I know what you mean. People are hurting. I've looked in their eyes. I've heard their stories. I've sensed their deep frustration. They're just hoping that we're working for them. Now, they're so strong and they're so decent, the American people. And those struggles haven't diminished that strength and that decency. And we hold in our hands the capacity to do great things on their behalf. But we're going to have to do it by not thinking about ourselves. Not thinking about, you know, how's this position me? How am I looking? And we're going to have to just think about how are we delivering for them. It starts with this economic recovery plan. And soon we'll take on the big issues like addressing the foreclosure problem by passing a budget, tackling our fiscal problems, fixing our financial regulation, securing our country. And we won't approach these challenges just as Democrats, because we remember the look in the eyes of our constituents. We know, even though they've been cynical, that they're thinking maybe this time's going to be different. They know we've got to overcome all these problems as Americans. And that's why we have to work in a serious, substantive, and civil way. And we will keep working to build bipartisan support for action. I promise you that my door is always open. My administration will consult closely with each and every one of you, the people's representatives, as we take on these pressing priorities. Already, you've made a difference. Nancy mentioned, I'm so proud of that day that we signed Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. To see Lilly Ledbetter on the stage, representing the American people, representing all the women out there who want their daughters to have the same opportunities as our sons. And then we signed children's health insurance to provide coverage for 11 million and make a down payment on comprehensive health care reform. And it wasn't easy. You worked hard to make it happen, which means we can work hard to make sure that we got jobs all across America and energy independence.
I don't think they're going to be able to put them in that hole, that big, powerful. They're not going to be able to put them there. They're going to probably have to kill him.
That's what this caucus is all about.
They're not going to be able to keep him silent, yo. Believe it, yo. More and more he's going to fuck around. He was getting a little bit crazy, and then he slowed it down and went back to his shit. They're going to get it. He knows he ain't got no telecrop. I don't think he got the telecrop there either. They're going to get him on his bullshit soon. He's going to start letting them know, man, because the nigga really, even though he made it, he got a heart for these motherfuckers, yo. He ain't just sitting there like, yo, man, this shit is bullshit.
Obama wrapping up a speech there in Williamsburg, Virginia, at a retreat for Democrats, rallying the troops, trying to get everyone engaged as they have this fight on their hands to try to get the stimulus.
Time does not stale nor custom wither your infinite variety, Mr. Cheney. You will say it and be wrong, and you will still say it anew. You will say it and undercut a president 17 days on the job, and you will still say it anew. You will say it and help terrorists, and you will still say it anew. The United States needs to be not so much loved as it needs to be respected. Sometimes that requires us to take actions that generate controversy. I'm not at all sure that that's what the Obama administration believes. The first glimmer in years of sanity in any of your remarks, sir. That's not at all what the Obama administration appears to believe. It seems to be ready to use all avenues and all emotions, seeking love, respect, fear, diplomacy, shared experience, education, principle, and yes, even rational thought. This president, unlike yours, Mr. Cheney, seems intent on living in the real world rather than trying to reshape an imaginary one by force. When we get people who are more concerned about reading the rights to an al-Qaeda terrorist than they are with protecting the United States against people who are absolutely committed to do anything they can to kill Americans, then I worry. More concerned, Mr. Cheney, what delusion of grandeur makes you think you have the right to say anything like that? Because a president or an ordinary American demands that we act as Americans and not as bullies, demands that we play by our rules, that we preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. You believe we have chosen the one and not the other? We can be Americans, or we could be what you call safe, but not both? If it hadn't been for what we did with respect to the terrorist surveillance program or enhanced interrogation techniques for high-value detainees, the Patriot Act and so forth, then we would have been attacked again. Those policies we put in place, in my opinion, were absolutely crucial to getting us through the last 7+ years without a major casualty attack on the U.S. Mr. Cheney, you're lying. As the cloud of fear you deliberately fostered in this good-hearted and courageous nation finally begins to dissipate, the nonsense that you and Mr. Bush presented as evidence of that childish claim, this perverse example of wishful nightmare thinking, has become apparent, and it should shame you. The major casualty attacks on the U.S. you think you stopped involved would-be hijackers who were under constant surveillance by at least 2 nations and had neither passports nor plane tickets. They involved feeble-minded braggarts, so clueless as to even the most obvious steps of organization that they believed they could enter Fort Dix in New Jersey disguised as pizza delivery men, kill hordes of Americans, and get out alive. Even though Fort Dix teems with soldiers who have an almost inexhaustible supply of weapons. They involved embittered ex-airport employees so uninformed about where they used to work that they thought dropping a match in a fuel supply line 30 miles away would cause the airport to explode. These are the plots that, by your own proud, strutting, crazy admissions, were the ones you got us through. You and Mr. Bush, sir, you are the old men who cried wolf. The Politico story continues. Citing intelligence reports, Cheney said at least 61 of the inmates released from Guantanamo during the Bush administration, that's about 11 or 12%, have gone back into the business of being terrorists. Mr. Cheney, you made this statistic up. Perhaps not you personally, but your people made this statistic up. As the new reality-based administration has discovered, there are not enough records of the detainees still at Gitmo to suggest that there is any reliable database on those who have been released. That McCarthy-esque number, sir, is also as fluid as the infamous Senator's was. As Professor Mark Denbo of Seton Hall University noted on this network last month, the government has given its 43rd attempt to describe the number of people who have left Guantanamo and returned to the battlefield. 41 times they have done it orally, as they have this last time. And their numbers have changed from 20 to 12 to 7 to more than 5 to 2 to a couple to a few, 25, 29, 12 to 24. Every time the number has been different, in fact, every time they give a number, they don't identify a date, a place, a time, a name, or an incident to support their claim. Mr. Cheney, which orifice are you pulling these numbers from? You know, in the movie The Manchurian Candidate, the character basically loosed on Joe McCarthy had trouble remembering all the different numbers. His Lady Macbeth-like wife pointed out to him that the reason she kept changing the number of reported communists in the State Department was so that people would no longer be